Hi everybody, it is Tuesday and you are in the kitchen with Evey. I am working today on a wonderful dish. I don't know if you've been following, but I've been talking a lot about healing foods. Healing foods that are anti-inflammatory, which is what I love to talk about, anti-inflammatory foods. But in this case, I'm going to be making a soup that is going to use a lot of the foods that I just included in my last blog that will help with healing, but not only healing, but if you are just looking for general health, will help you age better and maintain good health for longer, okay? What could those foods be, right? Some of these foods contain a lot of fiber, antioxidants and phytonutrients, which gives them a lot of color. So when I'm talking today, you'll see that I'm talking about foods that have a lot of color. And when I look for foods, say tomatoes with a lot of different colors are actually more beneficial for us than if we eat the same red tomato every single time. So I'm always looking for different foods to eat. And one of the things that I was looking especially for was a recipe that included Swiss chard. So these are from my garden. Swiss chard actually is one of those super healthy foods, and maybe I'll give a little bit more details about why a little bit later on as we're working. So as I said, today we are going to be making a late summer vegetable soup, a minestrone soup, which will include some beans for additional fiber and protein. Also very healing. So to start off, I did a little prepping. You'll notice that when I do recipes, I always prep my, sorry about that. I should always silence that. What do you think? So when I am making a recipe, I always prep my veggies beforehand, or at least a good number of them, so that I can get started with the dish. In this case, what I've done is I've cut up, about 3 carrots, I would say, about a cup's worth of chopped carrots, and about a cup's worth of chopped white onion, as well as a few stalks of celery, probably about a half cup here. I could even have done a little bit more on that celery, but I think we'll get started with that. All right. Another thing that's featured, a lot of these came from my garden. The Swiss chard for one, green beans, and the tomatoes. And I have some of these pre-chopped tomatoes as well. So to get started, let me turn on the heat on my pot. I have a big soup pot here, Dutch oven sized pot. I'm going to add in, I'm going to let that heat up for a second, and I'm going to add in a couple tablespoons of olive oil. All right, I want to get that oil nice and hot. Not too hot so that it's smoking, but I have it on a high temperature right now just to heat it up initially, and then as it goes, I'll turn it down because I don't want it to smoke too much. I'm going to add in first my onions, my carrots, and celery, and get those started. What I want to do is just have the onions start to get transparent and soften. So I'm adding in, as I said, my 1 cup of onion, which was about 1 onion, my celery, about a half cup, and about a cup of my chopped carrots. Oh, carrots were from my garden too. My carrots don't look really good. They taste really sweet, so they've got a great flavor, but they're great for something like this because they really don't look good to eat them whole. All right, I'm going to give this a stir. And I'm going to keep an eye on that as I'm talking, okay? We don't want anything to burn. But you can hear it sizzling, I'm sure. So while those are starting to cook down, I'm going to prep my Swiss chard. Now, a lot of times you'll see people throw out the stems of their Swiss chard. Don't do that because there's a lot of nutrition in those stems. What I'm going to do here is I've washed and rinsed my Swiss chard. I'm going to cut off the stems. And this is one of the reasons why I like this recipe, is because I can use these stems right away. Sometimes, if you're doing a saute, you may wish to leave the stems out for a little while. If you do, put them in the freezer so that you can use them in a soup or a broth later on. I'm just going to chop my Swiss chard here in probably about 1/2-inch sections. All right. So I have probably about a 1/2 cup worth of my Swiss chard here. Let's see if I can back this up a little bit so you can see a little bit more. Let's see if that works. Nope, don't think so. Oh well. All right, suffice it to say, I now have my 1/2 cup of Swiss chard that I'm going to add in. I'm going to stir that up, and then I'm going to lower my temperature to a medium-high heat. Let me just give you a little look. One of these days I'm going to have 2 cameras so that you'll be able to see what I'm cooking as I'm talking, so I don't have to bring it over to show you. But you can see here, smells good. Starting to get a little translucent, starting to soften up a little bit. I'm going to let those just continue just as they are. And while that's happening, I'm going to further prep. Let's finish up with our Swiss chard. So you can see that I have my Swiss chard here. I'm going to hold it in a bunch. This is probably about a 1/2 bunch of store-bought Swiss chard, maybe a little bit more. But I'm going to cut this now into ribbons, again, about 1/2 inch. I'm bunching up the Swiss chard into almost a roll and just going through and cutting every 1/2 inch down. All right. And then I'm going to go in the opposite 90-degree direction and just cut through. So now I have nice, small, bite-sized pieces of my Swiss chard. All right. I'm going to put that in a bowl. I would think this is probably about two cups of very well packed or stuffed Swiss chard. All right, I'm going to set that aside. We're going to use that later. I don't need that right now. I prepped a little bit of my green beans, but I wanted to show you my green beans from my garden. They took their time this year, but they're still coming in, and I'm still happy with that. But they're very long, right? So what I like to do is when doing a soup, I like to do things that are more or less bite-sized pieces. So what I've done here is I like to cut them on the diagonal. Let's see if I can put it this way so you can see that they're actually a diagonal cut. So it kind of tapers off on each end. And I will do that making them about 1 to 1.5 inches long. And I have now about a cup of these green beans. You can see about the size that they are. And I'm going to give my mirepoix here a little stir. looking good. And I want to add, okay, so I now have my celery, my Swiss chard, my carrots. I want to add in, before I add in my green beans, I want to add in a couple of cloves of garlic. Garlic is also a very healing food. I like to add it in whenever I can. It's part of the Italian in me. Okay, so I'm going to add in 2 good-sized garlic cloves. Garlic cloves help support the immune system, keeping it nice and strong. And if our immune system is strong, we are staying healthy. All right, I smashed that down. As you know, I love to smash my garlic. And I am just chopping through, making it a nice smaller dice. And I'm going to add that into my onion mix. I don't like to add my onion until later on because I don't want my onion to brown too much. What's nice is if you chop up the garlic, it actually exposes a lot of the phytochemicals that are healthy in the onion to the air, and it makes it actually, it almost activates the garlic. So I'm going to add that in now and give that a stir. All right. Let me show you where we are at this point. All right. You can see things are, it's actually lost some of the size. It's melting down, it's sweating. Probably a little bit browner than what I normally would do is if I were watching it very intently. I'm going to add in my green beans that I've just chopped. This is the way I like to store my green beans in the refrigerator. I'll have my container, but a piece of paper towel on the bottom just to absorb some of the moisture so it keeps a little bit longer. All right, let me stir in my green beans, and I'm going to stir in my cup of chopped tomatoes with all those colors. Gotta love that. All right, so I'm going to add that in as well, and I'm just going to let those cook down a little bit. All right. Should we take a look? Let me show you what we got here. All right. We're adding in some more color to this, right? All good. So we're going to let that cook down. While that is cooking down, I'm going to add in a little bit of salt. I'm going to add in about a teaspoonful of salt. I have this little scoop that I know is about a 1/4 teaspoon. So I added that in. I'm going to add in a little bit of pepper as well. All right. I probably added in maybe about a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. I will add seasoning later to taste. Now I noticed that the bottom of my pot is browning a little bit. What I will do when that happens is I'm going to add a little bit of my broth. Now I have some homemade chicken broth here that I'm going to add in later on, but just I'm going to loosen up some of the brown spots on the bottom. Like this. That's better. All right. Looking good. Oh, it smells so good. I wish you could smell that. Let me show you what we have here. All right, here we go. All right, keep cooking. You like that. All right, I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit because with the broth in there, it's slowed down. But I want the tomatoes and the green beans to just soften up a little bit. While that is happening, I'm going to cut up my zucchini. Again, zucchini is abundant this time of year. Tomatoes are abundant this time of year. Green beans are still abundant. Mine are a little bit later, as I said, but they're still coming out, and you can still get them in the grocery store. So, let's see. I cut these in about 1/2-inch sections, and now I like to make like a little tower of the slices, and I'm going to cut them in half, and then I'm going to cut them in quarters. So again, smaller bite-sized pieces when you're enjoying it in the soup. So I want about a cup of my zucchini. Let's measure this out and see how much we actually have here. My soup has come up to, my veggies have come up to a boil again, so I just turned them down a little bit. Yeah, so about half of a large zucchini is what I'm going to be using. All right. Those will be the next thing to add into my pot, along with, and this is a little trick. I remember my grandmother doing this. She would, when she had cheese, she would take the heel of the cheese, the rind, and put it into the freezer for when she made soup. I'm just going to cut that rind off of this block of Parmesan cheese. And I'm going to be adding that into our soup pot. And that's going to add a nice, salty, delicious umami flavor to the dish. So let me add in then my zucchini, right? My 1 cup of zucchini and my Parmesan rind, as well as, let's see, I'm going to put in maybe about 3 or 4 cups of broth. There we go. Let me give it a stir. Oh, this is looking so good. Yum. All right. And last but not least, I want to add in my beans. Now, at this point, I want to keep everything at a low simmer. So I'm going to let that come up to a boil, but I don't want it to boil vigorously because I don't want my beans to fall apart. Now, in this case, I'm using canned beans. So that I don't need to cook my soup for a long period of time. I'll probably be simmering this for about ½ hour, and that's good enough. I have some organic beans here. These happen to be butter beans. You could do cannellini beans as well. The butter beans are a little bit larger than the cannellini beans. I'm just going to rinse it. Rinse the beans off. And then I'm going to plop those in with my soup. All right. Turning that up to about a medium just so that I bring it up to temperature. Looking good. All right. So remember I have that cheese rind in there. I will take that out when I'm done cooking my soup. All right, now I haven't added in my chard yet. I typically would let this cook for 25 minutes or so, and then add in the chard, and just let the chard sit in there for a couple of minutes just to soften. Because chard comes from the same family as spinach. So as you know, spinach cooks down pretty quickly. Chard also will cook down fairly quickly. So I'm going to add this in later on typically. Remember I said I was going to tell you why Swiss chard was so healing. Green leafy vegetables are probably the most nutrient-dense foods that we can add into our diet, which means they have the most nutrition for the least amount of calories. They're very high in fiber. Fiber is very healing for us. It's very high in vitamin K. Vitamin K is very good with blood clotting and bone formation. So we want to get in as much vitamin K as possible. 1 cooked cup of Swiss chard has about 4 or 5 times the daily recommended amount of vitamin K. There's also vitamin A in there and vitamin C. All right. If you want to learn more about the benefits of and why these foods are so healing, go to my blog on my website, Healing Foods and Anti-inflammatory Foods as well. And you will learn a lot more about what foods would be beneficial just to start adding in little by little into your diet to help heal and help you stay healthy. All right. I'm going to add these in right now so we can dish out and you can see what the final dish will look like. So let me add that in. I'm going to bring it up to a boil so that my Swiss chard just wilts a little bit. And you'll be surprised at how quickly the Swiss chard will cook down inside. Now, originally I was going to make a Italian flatbread for today with chickpeas. It was called a farinata was the name of it. I decided not to because I was talking about healing foods. And this recipe just was chock full of so many vegetables, so much color, so many healthy antioxidants and phytochemicals that I thought I would go with this week. But next week, I'm going to be making this flatbread. And maybe I will highlight again Swiss chard because it is in season and so good for us. And it's one of those dishes where you can just add almost any kind of vegetable that you like. Very much like a pizza, right? So I'll be doing that next week. Let's take a look at what we've made this week though, right? Let me bring this over. It just came up to a boil. Let me give it a stir to wilt that Swiss chard a little bit more. All right. Let me bring this over. Oh, lovely. All right. I don't know if I can show that to you. It never looks as impressive when I tilt it over like that. Let's see. Let's see if I can show you this way. Oh, we've got some lovely, here we go. Look at that. Nice, chunky, hearty, good for us, healing soup. There we go. All right, so what I would love to do at this point is give it a little garnish. And again, look to the garden. Look to see what's in season. A lot of basil out there. So I'm going to add a little bit of basil to my mix. I usually just take a sprig and I put it on my windowsill. And I'm just going to break up a couple of leaves on top. And I'm going to do a little grating of Parmesan. Give it a little bit of flavor. All right. If I use the right side of the grater, right? All right, and I will take a picture of this and post it so that you can see what the finished dish looks like. All right, but I can tell you right now, it smells really good. And I think I know what I am having for my next meal. All right, I hope you enjoyed this recipe today. I know if you try it, it's something that will be good for you, a healthy alternative, a healthy meal. Maybe I make some of that flatbread with it, that chickpea flatbread with it. That would make an incredibly powerful, I guess, meal, very nutritious meal. All right, but until then, until next week, until we're cooking again, please stay well. Enjoy some of the recipes that I have. Check out my website, eveyschweig.com. You'll find recipes and blogs on healthy eating and lifestyle habits as well. And if you have any questions, just either text me in the comment section here or send me an email through my website. All right? I will see you next week. Bye-bye for now.